Hello, and welcome to Boring History for Sleep. Tonight, we invite you to settle in, to let go of the day, to release the tensions in your shoulders and in your mind. There is nothing for you to do now, but to breathe and to listen. The world outside can wait. For now, this time is for you. We are embarking on a long journey, one that spans not only vast distances, but also vast stretches of time. Our path tonight follows the faint, windswept tracks of the most famous network of trade routes in history, a name that conjures images of romance, adventure, and untold riches. We call it the Silk Road. But beyond the legends of figures like Marco Polo, beyond the shimmering silks and precious jewels, lies a more complex and subtle reality. It is a story of grit, of endurance, and of the countless, nameless people whose lives were defined by its endless, dusty miles. It is a story of profound silence in abandoned cities and the dazzling hum of capitals that thought themselves the center of the world. So, find a comfortable position, adjust your pillow, close your eyes if you wish, and let the noise of the modern world fade away. We are leaving it far behind as we travel east to the heart of ancient Asia. To begin our story, imagine yourself for a moment, not as a hero, a king, or a wealthy merchant, but as someone far more common, far more essential. It is the 7th century, and you are a young assistant, perhaps not even a man yet, in the service of a Sogdian master merchant. Your home is a vibrant city like Samarkand, a place of turquoise domes and bustling markets. But you see it only rarely, a fleeting memory between journeys. Your true home is the road, the endless road. Your day begins not with the sun, but with the cold, profound darkness that precedes the dawn. A sharp command from the caravan master cuts through the thin, frigid air, a sound that your body now recognizes more readily than your own name. You stir from a sleep that was never deep enough, never truly restorative. You are not resting on a soft bed, but on a rough woolen blanket laid upon the hard, unforgiving ground. The chill of the desert night has seeped through the wool into your bones, and every muscle aches with a familiar, weary complaint. There is no gentle waking. The work begins immediately, a series of practiced automatic movements. Your first task is to tend to the animals, the true engines of this enterprise, the real bearers of wealth. The Bactrian camels, magnificent and notoriously ill-tempered creatures, must be coaxed to their feet. They groan in protest, their breath pluming in the cold air. You move among them, your hands running over their coarse, shaggy hides, checking their harnesses for sores, your fingers tracing the rough, cold leather in the dim starlight. A single sore, left untended, could fester and disable a camel, a disaster for the caravan's pace and profit. You then begin the loading. Each bale is a small fortune for your master, but to you, it is simply dead weight that strains your back and numbs your hands. You and the other assistants work in pairs, hoisting the heavy, canvas-wrapped bundles of silk, chests of spices, or crates of ceramics, securing them with a complex web of ropes. You must know the knots, know how to distribute the weight perfectly, so the load doesn't shift on a steep incline. A dropped crate could mean a flogging, or worse, being left behind. The work is silent, efficient, punctuated only by grunts of effort and the shuffling of feet. Breakfast, when it comes, is a brief, functional affair. There is no warm hearth, no communal table. You are given your portion by the caravan's quartermaster, a piece of dry, hard flatbread baked days ago that scrapes the roof of your mouth. With it comes a handful of dried dates or apricots, their sweetness a brief, welcome shock, and most precious of all, a sip of water from a shared goatskin bag. The water is never enough. It is the caravan's most valuable commodity, rationed with extreme care. It tastes stale, of leather and dust, but it is life. You eat quickly, silently, knowing that this meager fuel must last you for many hours. And then, as the first hint of light bleeds across the eastern horizon, the day's journey begins. The caravan master gives the signal, and the long serpentine train of animals and men lurches into motion. It moves as a single, slow-moving organism. But you are not riding. Riding is a privilege for the master merchant, for the senior guards, for the wealthy travelers who have paid for the caravan's protection. You walk. Imagine the feeling of it, the relentless, bone-jarring monotony of footfall after footfall. The journey is not a sprint. It is an exercise in endless endurance. You find your place beside your assigned camel, your world shrinking to the animal's flank, the dusty ground, and the heels of the person in front of you. The ground beneath you changes, from the cracked, dry earth of the steppes to the sharp, ankle-turning stones of a mountain pass, to the soft, sinking sand of the Taklamakan, a place whose name is sometimes translated as you go in, but you don't come out. Each step is an effort. The sun, your constant companion, begins its ascent. It is first a welcome warmth against the morning chill, but soon becomes a relentless, oppressive force. There is no shade. The heat leaches the moisture from your body, and your thoughts turn again and again to water. The air you breathe is not fresh. It is thick with the dust kicked up by hundreds of hooves and feet, fine, gritty, alkaline powder that coats your tongue, stings your eyes, and works its way into every fold of your clothing, into the lines of your skin. It is mixed with the pungent, earthy smell of unwashed bodies and the musky scent of the camels. These are the smells of your life. The sounds are just as monotonous. The rhythmic plodding of the animals' feet on the earth, the soft, melodic jingling of the camel bells, a sound that is at first charming, but after weeks and months on the trail, becomes a maddening, inescapable part of the auditory landscape, the soundtrack to your exhaustion. You hear the squeak of a cart axle that no one has the time or spare grease to fix. Conversations are rare and practical, shouted commands or brief warnings. There is little energy to spare for idle chatter. Your mind drifts, not to grand ideas or dreams of the future, but to simple, primal concerns. Water, shade, the next rest stop, a patch of ground that looks slightly less rocky to sleep on. You watch the horizon, a shimmering, indistinct line that never seems to get any closer. You observe the caravan's guards, often hired mercenaries, whose eyes are always scanning that same horizon, but for a different reason. They are looking for the telltale plume of dust that signals the approach of riders, who might be fellow travelers or might be bandits. You've heard stories around the campfire from older assistants, stories of caravans that were overwhelmed. The goods are taken, of course, but lives are often forfeit. This low-grade fear is a constant humming beneath the surface of the boredom and the exhaustion. Even nature is a constant, impartial threat. A sudden, violent sandstorm can arise with terrifying speed, a churning wall of brown that blots out the sun and turns day into a terrifying, suffocating night. The only thing to do is to force the camels to lie down, huddle behind them, cover your face with a cloth, and wait for the maelstrom to pass, the wind scouring your skin with sand and threatening to bury you alive. In the high passes of the Pamirs, the roof of the world, the danger is not heat, but extreme cold and thin air. The air makes every breath a struggle, a burning in your lungs. A misplaced step on a narrow, icy ledge could send you, or a priceless camel, plunging into the abyss below. The social order of the caravan is as rigid and unforgiving as the landscape. Your master might speak to you to give an order, but you are otherwise invisible. You are at the bottom of the hierarchy. You eat last, and you eat the least. You are assigned the most grueling tasks. Your comfort is not a consideration. Your survival is only important insofar as it relates to the functioning of the caravan. As dusk finally begins to settle, painting the sky in bruised shades of purple and orange, the caravan halts, but your work is not done. The camels must be unloaded, their precious cargo stacked and guarded. They must be fed and watered with carefully measured amounts. A small fire might be lit, using precious dried animal dung as fuel. The evening meal is the same as the morning's. Bread, dried fruit, brackish water. You huddle with the other low-ranking assistants, seeking some small comfort in shared misery. Before collapsing onto your blanket, you stare up at a sky brilliant with more stars than you could ever count. A cold, beautiful, and utterly indifferent ceiling. You fall into a troubled, dreamless sleep, knowing that in just a few short hours, the entire wearying cycle will begin all over again. This is your life, a slow journey through a vast and indifferent landscape, a life measured not in years, but in footsteps. The life of that young assistant, multiplied by thousands, formed the fragile human thread from which the Silk Road was woven. For centuries, this thread was frayed by constant danger, by the whims of local warlords and the ever-present threat of bandits. A journey was a gamble, but in the 12th and 13th centuries, a force would emerge from the harsh steppes of Mongolia that would irrevocably change the nature of this journey. It was a force of unification, of brutal conquest, and of unforeseen order, and it was all set in motion by a single, determined individual. Our story now shifts from the dusty trail to the windswept grasslands to follow the life of the man the world would come to know as Genghis Khan. He was not born into greatness. His birth name was Temujin, and his early life was one of hardship and obscurity. He was born around the year 1162, clutching a blood clot in his fist, a detail that was later seen by followers as a powerful omen of a life destined to conquer. His father, Yesugei, was a minor tribal chief, the leader of his small clan, But this offered little protection in the volatile world of the steppe. While Temujin was still a boy of 9, his father was poisoned by a rival tribe, the Tatars, an act of vengeance that shattered his family's world and cast them into the unforgiving wilderness, abandoned by their own clan, who saw a family led by a woman and her young children as a burden. Temujin's family was left to fend for themselves. This was the crucible that forged his character. He learned the harsh calculus of survival on a landscape that offered little comfort. He learned to hunt marmots and fish in the Onon River. He learned to endure hunger and the biting cold of the Mongolian winter. He learned that loyalty was the most valuable currency, and that betrayal was a wound that could fester for a lifetime. His youth was marked by constant struggle. He formed a powerful bond, a blood brotherhood, with another young aristocrat named Jamuka, a friendship that would later curdle into a bitter and defining rivalry. He was captured by a rival clan and forced to wear a wooden collar, a heavy yoke of shame for a proud young man. But even in this state of utter humiliation, he did not despair. He observed his captors, he waited for his moment, and during a festival, he engineered a daring escape, hiding in the river with only his nose above the water. It was an early sign of the strategic patience and cunning that would define his later campaigns. Another defining moment was the kidnapping of his new wife, Berta. Rather than accepting the loss, Temujin spent months building alliances, calling in favors, and launching a successful raid to rescue her, an act that solidified his reputation as a determined and capable leader. The world of the Mongolian steppe was a fractured one, a constantly shifting mosaic of tribes and clans, the Karaits, the Merkits, the Naimans, the Tatars, all locked in endless cycles of raiding for horses, women, and territory. There was no central authority, only the strength of one's arm and the loyalty of one's allies. It was into this chaos that Temujin began his slow, methodical rise. He did not conquer through brute force alone. His true genius lay in his understanding of people and organization. He forged powerful alliances, rewarding loyalty with unwavering generosity. Crucially, he brought a new kind of meritocracy to his armies, promoting generals based on skill and trustworthiness rather than aristocratic lineage. This revolutionary idea meant that even a common shepherd could rise to command thousands, ensuring he had the most capable men in charge. Slowly, methodically, he began to unify the disparate Mongol tribes. He absorbed former enemies into his own ranks, breaking up old tribal structures to create a new, unified identity. His people, he defeated his rivals one by one in a series of carefully planned campaigns. He avenged his father by utterly defeating the Tatars. He overcame his powerful former patron and later rival Togrul of the Karaite tribe. Finally, he defeated the formidable Naiman tribe to the west, crushing the last major opposition. In the year 1206, at a great assembly, a Kurultai, on the banks of the Onon River, the chieftains of the now united Mongol nation bestowed upon him the title of Genghis Khan, the universal ruler. The fractured world of the steppes was now a single, disciplined, and formidable power, ready to be unleashed upon the world. With the tribes united, Genghis Khan turned his attention outward. His conquests are a matter of historical record, and they were often achieved with a terrifying and brutal efficiency. His armies, composed entirely of cavalry, were swift, disciplined, and masters of tactics like the feigned retreat. Cities that resisted his advance were subjected to utter devastation, their populations decimated. This fearsome reputation was itself a weapon. Many other cities chose to surrender rather than face the wrath of the Mongol armies. It was a grim chapter in human history, where entire regions were laid low and ancient centers of civilization were emptied. Yet, from this conquest arose a new and unexpected order to govern his vast and rapidly expanding empire. Genghis Khan established a system of remarkable ingenuity. He commissioned the creation of a written script for the Mongol language and established a code of law known as the Yasa, which, among other things, granted diplomatic immunity to envoys, and forbid the kidnapping of women, and most importantly, for our story, he perfected and expanded the yam. The yam was a revolutionary communication and supply system. It was a vast network of relay stations, stocked with fresh horses, food, and fodder, established at regular intervals across the empire, from the Pacific to the Caspian Sea. A Mongol messenger carrying an imperial passport known as a paisa could ride at full gallop from one station to the next, exchanging his tired horse for a fresh one, and cover up to 200 miles in a single day. This Pony Express of the steppes allowed Genghis Khan to maintain control over his generals and governors across thousands of miles. But the yam had an unintended secondary effect. It made the roads safe. The relay stations became protected rest stops. The routes were patrolled by Mongol soldiers, and the punishment for banditry was swift and absolute. For the first time, a merchant could travel from Persia to China with a reasonable expectation of arriving safely. This era of unprecedented stability and trade came to be known as the Pax Mongolica, the Mongol Peace. It is the great paradox of Genghis Khan's legacy. The man whose conquests led to the end of countless lives was also the man who created an environment where the Silk Road could flourish like never before. He unified the land bridge between East and West, and in doing so, created a continental superhighway for goods, ideas, technologies, and cultures. The very dangers that our young Sogdian assistant faced were, for a time, largely swept away by the iron will of the man from the steppe. His story is not one of simple villainy or heroism, but a more complex narrative of how a single, focused life, forged in hardship, could reshape the entire world, bringing a brutal, unforgiving order to a chaotic age. The Mongol peace brought a new security to the roads, connecting empires and allowing goods to flow with a newfound ease. But even the will of the great Khan could not command the shifting sands or the drying rivers. The Silk Road is a path littered with ghosts, the memories of cities and entire kingdoms that flourished for centuries, only to vanish, leaving behind little more than enigmatic ruins and silent questions. Our journey now takes us deep into one of the most desolate places on Earth, the Taklamakan Desert, to uncover the mystery of a kingdom swallowed by the sand, the lost oasis of Lulan. Imagine a vast expanse of shimmering, golden dunes, an ocean of sand that stretches to every horizon, seemingly without end. This is the Taklamakan, a name that resonates with warnings. It is a place of extreme temperatures, of searing heat by day and bitter cold by night. It is a landscape of profound silence, where the only sound is the whisper of the wind shaping and reshaping the dunes. Yet, for centuries, a vibrant kingdom thrived here, a vital hub on the southern route of the Silk Road. Lulan was a place of exchange, a meeting point for travelers from the east and the west, its existence made possible by the life-giving waters of the Tarim River, which once flowed through this arid landscape, creating a sliver of green in a world of yellow. For hundreds of years, Lulan's name appeared in Chinese historical texts as a place of strategic importance, a gateway to the western regions. It was a small kingdom, often caught between the ambitions of the powerful Han dynasty to the east and the Xiongnu nomadic confederation to the north. Yet it endured. Its people cultivated the land, built small cities, and grew wealthy from the passing trade. And then, around the 4th century AD, the mentions in the historical records simply stop. Lulan vanished from the map, slipping into the realm of legend, its name becoming a whisper among travelers, a ghost city swallowed by the sea of death. For over 1,500 years, the kingdom remained lost. It was not until the turn of the 20th century that the Swedish explorer Sven Hedin, guided by a local hunter who was searching for a lost axe, stumbled upon its remains. What he found was an eerie tableau, a city frozen in time. He walked through the ghostly outlines of houses, their wooden support beams bleached and skeletal by the unrelenting sun. He found a Buddhist stupa, a testament to the faith that had traveled along these roads, its wooden frame remarkably intact. He uncovered irrigation canals, now choked with sand, and the desiccated trunks of apricot and poplar trees, silent witnesses to the orchards that once blossomed here. It was a city not destroyed by war, but one that seemed to have simply been vacated, its people walking away, as the desert slowly, inexorably, reclaimed the land. But the most profound discovery, the one that truly deepened the mystery, was found within the cemeteries on the city's edge. Here, buried in the sand, were the bodies of Lulan's former inhabitants. They were not skeletons, but mummies, naturally and perfectly preserved by the dry, salty soil and the relentless wind. And they were unlike anything historians had expected to find in the heart of Central Asia. The most famous of these silent witnesses is a figure known today as the Beauty of Lulan. She was a woman who lived nearly 4,000 years ago, long before even the Silk Road proper existed, showing just how ancient the human presence here was. She was laid to rest peacefully, wrapped in a finely woven woolen cloak with a felted hood. A simple basket and a winnowing tray were placed beside her, but it was her features that were so startling to her discoverers. She had a high-bridged nose, deep-set eyes, and long, reddish-blonde hair, braided and coiled. She was, by all appearances, of Caucasian or Indo-European descent, and she was not alone. Dozens of other mummies from the Tarim Basin, like the tall Churchin man, found with his face painted in spirals, shared these features. They were tall people, with hair of varying shades of brown, blonde, and red. Their clothing was another puzzle. They wore intricately woven woolen textiles with complex plaid patterns, designs that bore a striking resemblance to ancient Celtic tartans, found thousands of miles to the west. This discovery presented a profound puzzle. Who were these people? Where did they come from? And what language did they speak? Archaeologists and linguists believe they have found a partial answer in the form of a lost language called Tocharian. Fragments of texts on paper and wood found in other oasis cities of the Tarim Basin revealed a branch of the Indo-European language family that was previously unknown. It was a linguistic island related to the languages of Europe and India, but geographically isolated by thousands of miles. It seems these people were the easternmost branch of a great migration that had begun millennia earlier on the steppes of Eurasia. The beauty of Lulan and her people were the descendants of these ancient pioneers. But this only deepens the central mystery. Why did their vibrant kingdom disappear? The most likely answer is a quiet, environmental tragedy. The Tarim River, the city's lifeblood, was fed by glacial melt from the distant mountains. It was an unstable river, prone to changing its course across the flat desert floor as the climate shifted and the glaciers that fed the river began to shrink. The water supply that sustained Lulan's oasis dwindled. The canals ran dry. The salty soil, no longer flushed with fresh water, became barren. The fields turned to dust. Imagine the slow, dawning realization for the people of Lulan. The process would have been gradual, not a single cataclysmic event, but a slow retreat of the green world, a slow advance of the yellow sand, a constant struggle against a foe that could not be fought with swords or walls. Eventually, a decision must have been made. The city could no longer be sustained. They had to leave, and so they walked away, abandoning their homes, their temples, and their dead, their memory kept safe and secret by the sand until the modern world stumbled upon them once more. The mystery of Lulan is a quiet reminder of the fragility of civilization and of the stories that lie sleeping just beneath the surface of the earth. From the silent, sand-choked ruins of a city that succumbed to the desert, our journey now turns toward a city that became a desert oasis of unparalleled splendor. While Lulan represents the perils and fragility of life along the Silk Road, our final destination embodies its ultimate promise, the concentration of immense wealth, knowledge, and power. We travel to the heart of Central Asia, to a name that for centuries was synonymous with magnificence itself. We arrive in Samarkand, the jewel of the world, during its golden age, under the formidable conqueror, Timur, also known as Tamerlane. After the Mongol Empire of Genghis Khan had fractured, Timur, in the late 14th century, forged his own vast and powerful empire, with Samarkand as its glittering capital. He was a man of immense ambition and ruthless conquest, a descendant of the Mongol nobility who saw himself as the restorer of their former glory. But he was also a man of profound aesthetic sensibilities. He funneled the treasures, and more importantly, the talents of the lands he subdued into this single, spectacular city. From Damascus, he brought the finest weavers. From Delhi, the most skilled stonemasons. From Persia, the most brilliant architects and calligraphers. His vision was to make Samarkand the center of the universe. If you were a traveler approaching Samarkand, You would have seen its brilliant turquoise domes rising from the dusty plains. Long before you reached its gates, they seemed to float like mirages under the vast Central Asian sky, a promise of water, life, and unimaginable splendor. Let us imagine ourselves within its walls. The overwhelming sensory experience is one of color, specifically the color blue. The city's grandest buildings are cloaked in a sea of ceramic tiles, shimmering in every shade from deep lapis lazuli to the palest turquoise, a color meant to evoke the heavens and the life-giving properties of water. Stand in the center of the Registan, the city's majestic public square. The name means sandy place, a humble origin for what became the nerve center of an empire. You are flanked by 3 immense madrasas, or Islamic schools. Their towering portals, or pishtaks, are covered in intricate geometric patterns, swirling floral motifs called islimi, and masterful calligraphy from the Quran, all gleaming as if made of polished gemstones. This was not just a place of beauty, but a statement of power and faith. From here, we can walk to the Bibi Kanim Mosque, which Timur built to honor his chief wife. Legend says it was designed to be so grand that it would rival the heavens. Its entrance portal was one of the largest in the Islamic world, and its great dome was called the rival of the dome of the sky. Inside, a massive marble Quran still sits in the courtyard, a testament to the scale of the vision. Or we could wander to the Shah-i-Zinda, the tomb of the living king. It is a quiet, sacred avenue of mausoleums, where the tombs of Timur's family and favored nobles are dressed in the most breathtaking tile work. Walking this lane is like walking through a gallery of ceramic art, each tomb a unique masterpiece of color and design. The sounds here are not the harsh noises of the trail, but a sophisticated, cosmopolitan hum. You hear the murmur of a dozen different languages: Persian, the language of the court; Turkic, the language of the military; Arabic, the language of religion; and the tongues of merchants from China, India, and Russia, all mingling in the sprawling marketplaces. The gentle bubbling of fountains in the hidden courtyards of noble houses provides a constant, soothing rhythm. The air is fragrant with the spoils of the empire. The scent of exotic spices, cinnamon, clove, and pepper, wafts from the covered bazaars. You can smell the sweet perfume of roses and jasmine from the meticulously cultivated gardens, and the rich aroma of bread, a local variety called naan, baking in clay ovens. This city was a feast for the senses, a deliberate creation of paradise on earth. Now let us imagine the life of the elite who inhabited this world. A nobleman or a wealthy merchant in Timurid Samarkand would begin his day not with a crust of hard bread, but perhaps with fresh melons and grapes from the fertile Fergana Valley, sweetened honey, and delicate pastries. His day would not be one of toil, but of cultivated leisure and intellectual pursuit. Much of the day might be spent in a lush, walled garden, a charba, quartered by flowing water channels, designed to evoke the 4 rivers of paradise. Here, reclining on fine silk cushions from China, he would listen to poets, recite verses from the great Persian epics, or challenge a friend to a contemplative game of chess with pieces carved from Indian ivory. This was not just a city of pleasure, but a global center of learning. Timur's grandson, Ulugh Beg, was a brilliant astronomer and mathematician who preferred the quiet pursuit of knowledge to the battlefield. On a hill outside the city, he built the Ulugh Beg Observatory, one of the finest in the world at that time. Its primary instrument was a colossal Fakhri sextant, a marble arch nearly 40 meters tall, built into a trench in the earth. With this and other instruments, Ulugh Beg and his team of scholars mapped the positions of over 1,000 stars with unprecedented accuracy. Their star catalog, the Ziji Sultani, was so precise that it was used by European astronomers for centuries. The evenings in Samarkand were for feasting. In the grand halls of their palaces, the nobility would host lavish banquets. The tables would be laden with pilafs of fragrant rice, roasted lamb, dumplings, and dozens of other dishes. The silk on their robes, the jewels that adorned their hands, the porcelain cups from which they drank, every object was a testament to the long and perilous journeys undertaken by others, all culminating in this single point of dazzling consumption. It was a world built on the foundation of the Silk Road, the glittering prize, at the end of that long, dusty trail, a paradise of luxury and learning, made possible by the endless, monotonous footsteps of countless, nameless men. And so, our long journey along the Silk Road comes to a close. We have walked in the footsteps of the weary assistant, his life a testament to the simple, human grit required to keep the world connected. We have followed the sweeping ambition of a conqueror who brought both brutal destruction and unprecedented order, taming the very roads his empire depended on. We have stood in the silent ruins of a lost kingdom, a quiet reminder of how even great civilizations can be reclaimed by time and nature, and we have marveled at the splendor of Samarkand, a city that was the brilliant, shining culmination of all that struggle and all that trade. These are but a few stories from a network of trails that shaped humanity for centuries. Each story, whether of hardship or luxury, of mystery or power, is a single thread in a vast and complex tapestry, a tapestry woven with human ambition, suffering, and the simple, enduring desire to see what lies beyond the horizon. Now, that journey is over. The dust has settled. The vibrant courts are silent. All that remains are the stories, whispering to us from the past. You can let them go now. Let the images of deserts and domes, of camels and conquerors, gently fade from your mind. There is nothing left for you to do but to rest. The struggles of the past are far away, and you are here, safe and comfortable in the present moment. Allow the rhythm of your own breath to be your guide now, a gentle, steady wave carrying you into a deep and peaceful sleep. Good night.